Let's look at how grades might be distributed across a class. Now I've put together a list of grades that is pretty obvious to look at. We have a few people who scored low, a few people who scored high, then everybody else falls in the middle. We can easily see that in this list, but if you have a list that's a little bit longer or a bit more complicated and you want to use Excel to help you see how the numbers are distributed, you would need to start grouping this data. Let's see, you might want to count the number of grades between 70 and 77. Then you might want to count the number of grades between 77 and 85, maybe between 85 and 88. And we can use a pivot table to help with that. Let's click on the first cell in this list. We'll click Insert, Pivot Table. And it selected the entire range for us. If not, we would just select it ourselves by left clicking and dragging. And do we want to go to a new sheet or go to the existing worksheet? Let's tell it to go to the existing worksheet. I'll click in location here, and I'll click location here, so it'll start here, and I'll click OK. And now I'm ready to build my pivot table. On the right hand side here, I want to count the grades. So I want the grades put in a row, so I'm going to left click and drag grades down to the row area down here. And notice what it did. It grouped all the 75s, all the 77s, and so on. But now I need to count these. So I'm going to grab grades again, drag it down to the values area. And because the pivot table saw numbers, it assumed that I wanted to add the numbers up. So it added up all the 75s, added up all the 77s, etc. So I need to change that. So over here in values, I'll click the drop down, value field settings, and I'm going to change this to count instead of sum. And now I have a count of the 75s, the 77s, and so on. But now I don't want a count of each individual grade. I want a group of grades. So now I'm going to right click over here on the 75 or any number on the left hand side. Then I'll select group. And it automatically assumes I want to start at 75, which is the lowest number, and end at 100, which is the highest number. And let's say I want that in increments of 5 instead of increments of 1. I'll change that 1 to a 5, click OK. And now notice what I have. 75 to 79, I had 4 scores that fall within that range. 85 to 89, 13 scores. And 95 to 100, 3 scores. So I'm going to plot this, but sometimes making a table or making a chart from a pivot table might be problematic. So I'm going to copy this data first. Left click, drag. I'm going to copy the whole thing. Actually, I'm going to get the headers as well. Right click, copy, and then I'm going to paste special under the home tab. Under the paste icon, I'm going to click paste values, which is this one here under paste values, 1, 2, 3. So now it's not a pivot table anymore, it's just a table of numbers. And let's see, this will be grade, and this will be count of grade. So let's put this in a smooth scatter chart. I'm going to left click and drag to select the whole thing. Go to my insert tab. Under scatter chart, I'm going to click the drop down. And I'm going to choose the scatter chart with smooth lines. And here is my scatter chart showing the plot of data. And as you can see, it kind of looks like a bell curve. Normally you probably have a little tail out here on each end as well. And notice that it does appear to be skewed slightly to the left. It's a little up on the left than it is on the right, but it's pretty close to a curve. So that's one way to look at your distribution graphically. But Excel has a new histogram chart that's available that will group the data for you, so you won't need the pivot table to group it. Let's go back to our grades here. I'm going to left click, drag, and select. I'm going to go to Insert. And here's my histogram in charts here. I'm going to click the drop down and choose histogram. And here's my histogram, and you can note that it still has the bell curve shape and more average grades. Now normally once you add it, you don't have to keep adding it, but normally Excel doesn't come with it installed, but you can add it as an add-in. Go to File, Options, Add-ins, Excel Add-ins, Go. analysis Toolpak. Okay, and now we have the data analysis over here, and I need to create a bin for the data analysis Toolpak histogram. So I'm going to call this bin, and then we're going to distribute the grades. Let's say I want 75 to 80 and 80 to 85, 85 to 90, and so on. And now I'm graduating by 5s, then Excel should understand I want to keep going away. So I'm going to select this group, then left click and drag, and it should count by 5s for me, and it did. So 75 to 80, 80 to 85, 85 to 90, 95 to 100. And now that I have this information, let's go to data analysis. I'm going to select histogram and OK. It's going to ask me for the input range, and I'll select the input range here. And my input range has a label, so I'll check my label off there, and bin range is here. I'll select that. And output range, I'm going to put it in the same sheet that I'm working on, so I click this box and then click here, and that's where my histogram will show. And let's say I want a cumulative percentage and a chart output. Let's click OK and see what we get. So here's my histogram chart, here's my cumulative percentage, and also it put together the bin and the frequency of each bin and the percent of each bin, the cumulative percent here.